They told you it was just another Friday. They told you to go out, to blend in with the noise, to walk among the crowd like you always do. But deep in your spirit, you felt it, an unshakable pull, a whisper that said, "Not this time. Stay in." You didn't understand why. You couldn't see the full picture. But the one who called you, he saw it all before the foundations of the earth. This wasn't just a random choice. This was an appointment, a divine intervention, a barrier placed between you and what the enemy had prepared. For the chosen ones, there are no coincidences, only divine timings, divine detours, and divine protections. And sometimes the greatest battles are won not by running into the storm, but by staying behind closed doors. You see, the enemy knows your patterns. He knows where you walk, who you meet, the paths you take. He studies you, waiting for the perfect moment to set a trap. But the God who chose you is not a passive observer. He is the God who disrupts the enemy's plans before they unfold. And there are days, like this Friday, when his voice doesn't call you into the battlefield, but into the secret place, a place where your absence will confuse your enemies, frustrate their schemes, and shift the course of what could have been. Sometimes the victory is in the fight, but other times the victory is in the stillness. And this is where the world gets it wrong. They think that staying in means missing out. They think silence means weakness, that stillness means inaction. But when you are chosen, stillness is not passive. It is strategic. It is the weapon of those who know they are led by a higher hand. It is the pause before the arrow flies, the silence before the trumpet sounds. God doesn't need you exposed to every storm to prove your strength. Sometimes he shields you not because you can't handle it, but because the storm was never meant to touch you at all. Imagine it, the streets filled with voices, the night heavy with distraction, temptation dressed like opportunity. And there you are, inside, seemingly away from it all, yet exactly in the center of his will. You may never know what he saved you from. You may never see the enemy's snare that was set on that road you didn't walk. But in eternity's books, this night will be marked as a victory won in the unseen. For the chosen, the greatest deliverances often happen in the dark, away from the eyes of the crowd. Quote 1T, the enemy is not just attacking your actions, he's after your timing. He knows that if he can get you to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, he can derail months, sometimes years, of your calling. This is why God will sometimes interrupt your routine with an unexplainable leading. You'll feel it as an unease, a hesitation, a subtle, "No, not now." This is not just your mind. It is the Spirit adjusting your steps to keep you aligned with heaven's calendar. Think about it. Joseph's brothers planned to kill him, but the timing shifted and a caravan came by instead, sending him to Egypt, into the exact position God had prepared. David was sent to deliver bread, but at the exact moment he arrived, Goliath stepped forward. Timing is not just important, it is everything, and the devil knows this. So when God tells you to stay in, he is not just saving you from danger. He is preserving your alignment with the appointments of your destiny. I want you to picture your life as a grand tapestry, each thread representing a moment, an encounter, a decision. Some threads are bright with joy, others dark with pain, but all are necessary to form the complete picture. Now imagine if the enemy could pull just one thread at the wrong time. It could distort the entire design. That's what wrong timing does. It's not always about sin. It's about being shifted out of sequence, out of divine order. And this is why you cannot afford to treat God's warnings lightly. You may not see the battle, but your obedience can decide whether you walk into a trap or step into a miracle. Some of you are frustrated because God has been telling you, wait when you wanted to move, or stay in when you wanted to go. But you don't realize He is sparing you from walking into a door that would lock behind you. He is not denying you, He is protecting you. Think of Israel in Egypt during the night of the first Passover. God didn't say, go out and fight Pharaoh. He said, stay inside, mark the door with the blood, and let me pass through. That night, the battle was not won in the streets, but in the obedience of staying within the covering. The chosen ones know that sometimes staying in is the most aggressive act of warfare you can engage in because it refuses the enemy's invitation to destruction. And this Friday, it's not just a Friday. It's a line drawn in the sand. The heavens have already marked it. The Spirit has already whispered it. If you step outside of His instruction, you may find yourself in the wrong conversation with the wrong people in the wrong place. But if you stay in the house, you align yourself with the God who sees the unseen and commands angels to guard your dwelling. The enemy may prowl outside, but he cannot enter the door God has sealed. The protection of God is not always dramatic. It's often invisible. And that's what makes it so easy to ignore. We are drawn to miracles. We can see the sea parting, the fire falling, the giant falling to the ground. But the quiet miracles, the ones where God simply prevents something from happening, are no less powerful. In fact, they are often the ones that shape our destiny the most. Consider the times you left the house late and missed the accident on the road, or the job you didn't get only to find out later it was corrupt to the core, or the friendship that broke unexpectedly, which at the time felt like loss, but was actually a rescue. These are not accidents. These are divine preventions. And when God says, stay in, you are stepping into one of the most profound expressions of His love. The love that guards you from battles you don't even know are being fought. Think of Lot in Sodom. The angels didn't just tell him to leave. They physically pulled him out before destruction came. That's how fiercely God protects His chosen. Now reverse that. Sometimes He pulls you in and shuts the door before destruction outside can reach you. Noah didn't need to know exactly when the first drop of rain would fall. He just needed to be in the ark when God said, come in. Your obedience does not require your full understanding. It requires your trust. And trust is tested most when the danger is invisible, when nothing seems wrong, but the Spirit says, not tonight. This is where many fail, because they think danger must look obvious, that evil must come with warning signs. But the most dangerous traps are the ones that feel normal. And the chosen cannot afford to live by sight alone. They live by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Your eyes may see a harmless Friday night, but your spirit may sense a night where the enemy plans to plant seeds in your mind, in your relationships, in your decisions. And those seeds, if planted, can grow into trees of destruction that bear fruit for years. So yes, this Friday, God is not asking you to walk into the noise. He is calling you into the shelter. He is saying, I have already fought for you today. I have already arranged your victory. All I need from you is to remain where my covering rests. And if you could see the other side of this night, if you could see the traps avoided, the dangers diffused, the attacks dismantled, you would not question the stillness. You would praise Him for it. The enemy is not just after your actions. He is after your timing. He understands something that most people ignore. That timing is the invisible thread that connects destiny. If he can shift your steps by even a moment, if he can pull you away from the exact hour, the exact place, the exact moment where God intended you to be, then he can derail the unfolding of your purpose without you even realizing it. You may think he is attacking your behavior, your desires, your relationships, but often his warfare is far more subtle. He is attacking the clock of your life. And for the chosen ones, every second matters. Think about the times in Scripture where timing was everything. If Joseph's brothers had not decided to throw him in the pit when they did, the Midianite caravan would have already passed. Joseph would not have been sold into Egypt, would not have entered Potiphar's house, would not have been thrown into prison, and would not have stood before Pharaoh to interpret the dream. One shift in timing would have unraveled the entire plan of God for Israel's survival in the famine. Or consider David, sent by his father to bring bread to his brothers. If he had arrived a few minutes earlier or later, he would have missed the moment Goliath stepped forward to issue his challenge. That moment, timed perfectly, was the hinge upon which David's destiny swung open. The enemy knows this, and so does God. That's why God will interrupt your plans, shift your steps, delay your going out, or call you to stay in, not to frustrate you, but to preserve the alignment of your destiny. And here is what you must understand: divine timing is not random. It is orchestrated, precise, like the movements of the stars in the heavens. The God who set the planets in their orbits is the same God who sets the appointments of your life. And the adversary knows that if he can cause you to miss just one of those appointments, or cause you to be in a place God never assigned you at an appointed time, he can steal opportunities, plant snares, or sow seeds that will later grow into thorns in your path. That's why the Spirit will sometimes speak to you with an unexplainable urgency or an equally unexplainable hesitation. That's why, even when everything looks normal, you may feel a deep knowing that says, "Not tonight, not this way. Stay where you are." The battle for timing is subtle because it is invisible. You don't see the threads being woven together. You don't see the angel God has sent to intersect your path tomorrow, or the trap that has been set to meet you tonight. All you see is the surface of the moment, and the danger for many is that they live only by sight. And because they see no danger, they assume there is none. But the chosen cannot afford to live by sight alone. The chosen live by the voice, the prompting, the leading of the Spirit, because they know the enemy works in shadows, and God often delivers in whispers. Sometimes that whisper will come to you as an unease you can't explain. Your friends may call, telling you to come out, and something in you says, "Not tonight." You may be preparing to walk out the door, and suddenly you feel the urge to sit back down. You may think it's just you being tired or distracted or lazy, but often it is God adjusting your steps in real time, steering you away from a collision you don't even know is ahead. And here's the truth. If you are chosen, there are things you will never see simply because you obeyed and stayed away. There are accidents you never got into, conversations that never happened, temptations that never had the chance to touch you, betrayals that never got the chance to unfold. The enemy's plan looked perfect, except you weren't there. And you weren't there because God told you to stay in. When God says, "Stay in," He is not just protecting you from what is outside. He is protecting the sequence of your calling. The enemy understands that a delay in obedience or an acceleration in disobedience can cause you to miss the precise intersection of heaven's schedule. In the kingdom of God, timing is not just important, it is critical. Jesus himself came in the fullness of time. If he had come earlier or later, the prophetic alignments would have been broken. The cross happened at the exact hour it was meant to. The resurrection happened on the precise day appointed. If timing was critical for the Son of God, how much more for you and me? This is why spiritual warfare often looks like distractions, delays, or sudden urges to act outside of God's leading. The enemy will try to push you to move when you should wait, or wait when you should move. He will try to get you to show up before your time, to take matters into your own hands, to force doors open instead of waiting for God to open them. Or he will tempt you to linger when God says, "Go now," so that you miss the divine intersection. But when you are in tune with God's Spirit, you will begin to sense the rhythm of heaven in your own life. You will know when to rise and when to sit, when to speak and when to be silent, when to step out and when to stay behind closed doors. One of the greatest dangers for the chosen is impatience. Impatience is a weapon of timing. It makes you think that nothing is happening, that God is silent, that you need to make something happen yourself. But impatience will cause you to leave the safety of God's timing and walk into places you were never meant to be. Remember Saul? He was told by Samuel to wait 7 days for him to come and offer the sacrifice. But on the seventh day, when the pressure grew and the people began to scatter, Saul grew impatient and offered the sacrifice himself. In that moment, he stepped out of divine timing, and it cost him the kingdom. One act outside of God's timing undid years of calling. And yet, the reverse is also true. One moment of obedience to God's timing can change everything. Think of Esther. If she had approached the king a day earlier or later, the outcome could have been completely different. But she waited for the exact moment, and her obedience saved a nation. That is the power of being in the right place at the right time. That is why, when God says, "Stay in," you must listen, even if you don't see the reason, because timing is the doorway through which destiny walks. We live in a world obsessed with speed, with movement, with doing something, anything, rather than waiting. But for the chosen, the highest form of action is obedience, even if obedience means stillness. You must understand that your life is part of a larger battle plan, and the commander sees more than the soldier. There are nights when he will send you into the fight, and nights when he will keep you in the barracks. And both are equally part of the war. If you go out when he says to stay, you may win a small skirmish, but lose the larger battle. If you stay in when he says to go, you may miss the victory altogether. The key is not in doing more. It is in doing exactly what he says when he says it. And here is the mystery. Sometimes the enemy will try to push you out into the open, not to attack you directly, but to remove you from where you were meant to be when God's blessing arrives. He knows that if he can get you out of position, the blessing may arrive and you won't be there to receive it. This is why you must guard your position as fiercely as you guard your faith. Your position in the Spirit is tied to your timing in the natural. This Friday may seem like any other to you, but in the realm of the Spirit, it could be a turning point. There may be assignments set against you, conversations designed to sow doubt, meetings arranged to entangle you in things that would take years to escape from. Or perhaps there may be blessings meant to find you right where you are, but they require you to be there when they arrive. You don't need to see the whole picture to obey. You just need to trust that the one who holds the times and seasons in his hands knows exactly why he is telling you to stay in. Sometimes God protects you not from the storm itself, but from being outside at the wrong time, when the first drop falls. Sometimes he shields you not from the battlefield itself, but from stepping into the crossfire before the battle is ready to be won. And sometimes he simply calls you into the secret place, away from the noise, because your absence in the enemy's plan is the very thing that causes it to collapse. The enemy cannot execute a plan without the target, and if you are not there, the plan dies before it begins. This is why I say again, the enemy is not just attacking your actions. He is attacking your timing. He knows that if he can move you out of alignment with God's clock, he can disrupt the chain of events that leads you into your calling. But the God who chose you knows how to keep you in step. And when he says, stay in, he is not just keeping you safe. He is keeping your destiny intact. Every step, every pause, every delay under his hand is part of the divine choreography that will bring you to the place you were always meant to stand. The protection of God is not always dramatic. It is not always the splitting of seas, the falling of fire from heaven, or the shaking of prison doors at midnight. Often, the most profound protection of God is silent, invisible, and unnoticed in the moment. It is the meeting you never attended because the plan fell through. It is the road you never took because something delayed you. It is the friendship that ended suddenly, the job you didn't get, the trip you canceled, the phone call you missed. And because nothing visibly dangerous happened, you never knew that you had just walked past an unseen battlefield where angels had already fought for you. That is the kind of protection the chosen ones live under. Not always a rescue from disaster after it has struck, but a prevention that keeps disaster from touching them in the first place. We are drawn to the miracles we can see because they are easy to recognize and celebrate. We marvel at the healings, the deliverances, the supernatural provisions that break into our lives like a flash of lightning across the night sky. But the quiet miracles, the ones where God simply stops something from happening, are no less supernatural, no less powerful. They just don't announce themselves with noise. They don't leave a story you can tell in vivid detail because the victory happened in the absence of the thing you were saved from. And yet, for many of us, these invisible interventions have been the very reason we are still alive today. You have no idea how many times you have been spared from destruction simply because God whispered no to your plans. You think you were unlucky when the car wouldn't start, or frustrated when you missed the bus, or confused when the meeting was canceled. But in heaven's record, those were moments when God altered your path to keep you from walking straight into harm's way. He didn't need to show you the danger. He only needed you to trust his redirection. And if you are chosen, you will find that your life has been full of these invisible mercies, each one a quiet testimony of his love. Consider Lot in Sodom. He didn't fully understand the destruction that was coming. He only knew the angels told him to leave. They didn't sit down and give him every detail of the impending disaster. They didn't explain the science of sulfur and fire. They simply told him, leave now. And when he hesitated, they physically pulled him away. That is how fiercely God protects his own. He doesn't owe you the full explanation before he saves you. He just calls you to obey. And sometimes that obedience looks like staying in when everyone else is going out. Now think about Noah. The rains had not started when God told him to enter the ark. There were no clouds yet, no signs in the sky, no drops falling on the earth. To the eyes of the world, he must have looked foolish, sitting inside a massive boat on a dry day. But the command to come in was not based on what Noah could see. It was based on what God already knew. And because Noah obeyed the unseen warning, his family was preserved from a judgment that no one around him even believed in until it was too late. The protection of God will often require you to act before there is any visible reason to do so. That is why it is so often missed by those who walk by sight instead of faith. This Friday may feel like an ordinary day to you. You may see nothing threatening in the streets, hear nothing alarming in the news, sense nothing unusual in the atmosphere. But God does not protect you based on what you see. He protects you based on what He sees. He sees the conversations that could poison your mind if you were in the wrong room. He sees the accidents the enemy has plotted to orchestrate through small coincidences. He sees the spiritual traps that appear harmless in the natural, but are deadly in the unseen. And because He sees them, He knows when to keep you inside. The greatest challenge of invisible protection is that it requires invisible trust. You must trust without seeing the danger you are being saved from. And this is where many fall, because they think protection should always feel like a rescue from something they can name. But if you are chosen, you will come to understand that the absence of trouble is just as much a miracle as deliverance from trouble. The storm that never touched your house is as much the hand of God as the storm that came and passed without destroying you. The temptation you never encountered is as much His grace as the one you overcame. The accident you missed by 5 minutes is as much His intervention as the one where you walked away unharmed. You may never know on this side of eternity how many arrows were aimed at you but never released. You may never see the traps that were dismantled before you even left the house. You may never hear the accusations against you that God silenced before they reached your ears. And perhaps that is His mercy too, that you don't have to live with the knowledge of every battle fought on your behalf in the unseen realms. All you have to do is trust that your steps are ordered, your path is guarded, and your times are in His hands. Invisible protection is often disguised as inconvenience. The traffic jam that kept you from arriving on time, the appointment that was rescheduled, the plan that fell apart at the last moment, the person who suddenly couldn't meet with you. To the natural mind, these feel like delays or disappointments, but in the spirit, they are often detours away from destruction. And if you could see the map of your life from heaven's perspective, you would fall to your knees in gratitude for every inconvenience. That was actually a shield. There is another side to this too. Sometimes God's invisible protection is about more than just keeping you safe from danger. Sometimes it is about keeping you in the place where His blessing will find you. The same hand that closes the door to the wrong room is the hand that positions you in the right one. Staying in when He says to stay is not just about avoiding harm. It is also about being in the place where provision, favor, and breakthrough will arrive. Just as surely as He prevents you from walking into destruction, He positions you to walk into blessing. The Israelites experienced this on the night of the first Passover. God told them to stay inside under the covering of the Lamb's blood. Outside, death was moving through the streets. Inside, they were untouched. But that night was not just about avoiding judgment. It was also about being positioned for deliverance. The very next day, Pharaoh would release them. Had they wandered outside in disobedience, they could have been struck down with Egypt. By staying inside, they lived to walk out free. Protection and positioning are often the same act in the hands of God. This is why, when God tells you to stay in, you must not argue, hesitate, or demand to see proof of danger first. You must learn to respond to His voice with the same urgency you would if you could see the danger for yourself. For the chosen, obedience is not based on visible evidence. It is based on the certainty that the shepherd knows what lurks in the shadows even when the sheep see nothing. He knows where the wolves are hiding, where the cliffs drop off, where the snare lies hidden in the grass. and because He knows you can rest in the safety of His leading. Sometimes we think God's protection should feel like an embrace, something warm and reassuring. But often, it feels like isolation, like being left out, like missing an opportunity everyone else is enjoying. The world may be out there celebrating, and you are inside wondering why God is keeping you away from the crowd. But in the kingdom, being kept back is often being kept safe. And the very thing you feel you are missing out on could be the thing God is saving you from. The banquet you weren't invited to may have been poisoned. The relationship that didn't work out may have been a snare. The journey you didn't take may have ended in a pit. You may not see it now, but every time God said no, or stay in, and you obeyed, you walked past an unseen battlefield already littered with the enemy's failed plans. The protection of God is not just about preserving your life. It is about preserving your calling. It is about ensuring that you live to fulfill every purpose He wrote for you before the foundation of the world. And sometimes, the way He does that is not by making you stronger to face the attack, but by removing you from the place where the attack will happen. Invisible protection will require you to walk with a different kind of faith, a faith that trusts the heart of God even when it cannot see the hand of God at work. It is the faith that says, if He told me to stay, I will stay even if I never know why. If He told me to wait, I will wait, even if it costs me opportunities the world says I should take. This faith is not built on explanations. It is built on relationship. You obey because you know the one who speaks is trustworthy. You stay because you know the one who says stay is your refuge and fortress. And perhaps one day when you stand in eternity and see the full tapestry of your life, you will be shown the nights you stayed in and the things you were spared from because of it. You will see the traps avoided, the snares broken, the battles won without you ever having to fight them. And in that moment, you will understand that the invisible protection of God was not just about keeping you safe. It was about keeping you aligned, keeping you whole, keeping you ready for the moments when He would call you to step forward into the destiny He has prepared. Until then, trust the stillness as much as you trust the movement. Trust the no as much as you trust the yes. Trust the walls He places around you as much as you trust the doors He opens for you. Because for the chosen, every closed path is as much His love as every open one. And when He says, stay in, know this, it is not a limitation. It is a shield. It is not a denial. It is a deliverance. And it is not the absence of His presence. It is the fullness of it, surrounding you, unseen but unbreakable. So when the Spirit tells you to stay in this Friday, you will know it is not a random feeling, not a passing thought, not a coincidence. It is the voice of the one who knew you before you were formed, the one who has walked ahead of you into every tomorrow, the one who has already seen the battle and already declared the victory. You may not hear the clash of swords in the unseen, but heaven has already gone to war for you. You may not see the enemy's trap crumble to dust, but it will. And you may never know what would have happened if you stepped outside. But you will know what did happen because you obeyed. In the world's eyes, staying in may look like doing nothing, but in the kingdom's eyes, it is an act of war. It is refusing to walk into the devil's invitation. It is choosing to remain under the covering of the Almighty when the shadows grow long. It is the declaration that your steps are not your own. Your timing is not your own. Your life is not your own. It belongs to the one who bought it with His blood. And one day, when the story of your life is told in full, when the pages are opened in the courts of heaven, There will be a chapter that begins with this night, this obedience, this choice to stay. And the angels will testify that the enemy had a plan, but the chosen one was not there to meet it, because the voice of God said, "Stay in." And the chosen one listened. And that was the night heaven smiled and hell's plans fell to the ground.